Hey ladies, welcome to Speak Life Project with Lex. I'm so excited that you stopped in. This is a place where we talk about all the things from real life topics, daily struggles, and topics that most people don't want to talk about. Remember to like, subscribe, share, follow us on social media. It's Speak Life Project _ so you can keep in touch with all the things that's happening in our corner. So today, I want to talk about something that is so near and dear to my heart, and that I believe that all of us, at least at some point in our life, should do. And this is missions. Being a part of or going on a mission trip. And so this specific episode is actually, I'm going to title it Mission Queen, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But in Mark 16:15, we all know what the Great Commission is, or if you don't, this is what it says in Mark 16:15. He said to them, which is Jesus said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." And that is a command for all of us to do as Christians, is to go into all the world and preach the gospel. And I love that scripture. And a little backstory behind what I'm about to talk to you guys about is ever since that I can remember, I want to say 6 years old is when I went on my first plane ride. I actually went by myself. And back then when you went as a young person like that, a minor, they sat you up in the front of the plane. And if there were any other minors that were there, they sat you guys together, and the stewardess made sure that you were good. They gave you all the snacks, made sure that you were well taken care of. And so I went on the plane at 6 years old by myself, went to go see my grandma. She lived in Maryland. And at the time I lived in Rhode Island, and I loved my grandma so much, and I still do, but I wanted to go see her. And my mom was like, okay, you can go. I was fine by myself. It actually was a great experience. Long story short, I believe that the girl that I was next to was an angel because, and this is kind of going off topic, but I'm still going to tell you. So the girl that was sitting next to me on the plane, she was another 6-year-old. I was really into the arts and drawing. And so I used to draw all the time. And I had all my drawing supplies. I had all my whole art kit with me to try to focus on that while I was on the plane. Mind you, the plane ride was only an hour long. Just so you're not oh my goodness, how can you be 6 by yourself going on this plane ride? It was literally 45 minutes up and down. So this girl that was sitting next to me, she was the same age. She literally had the same interests as me. So she popped out her whole art supply. She had this whole drawing thing. It was very similar to what I had. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness, you too? And she's like, yeah. And so we were sitting there drawing together, having a good old time. And then it came time to me landing, and I got there. And right when I was getting everything off of the plane and the stewardess was helping me and my grandma was there, this girl, I went to go say thank you. It was nice to meet you. When I say she disappeared, she literally disappeared. She disappeared in thin air. There was no way that she could have left that fast. We didn't see anybody with her. It was the craziest, most bizarre thing. And so I really believe that the Lord did that for me that day because, I was a little nervous still at the same time by myself, first time. It was a crazy experience. But I said all that to say is that was my first time flying. And ever since that day, I can remember having a passion to travel. And then there was another thing that we did at our church with our kids' church was that we were a part of a program where we would bring coins and our money and change and things like that to the church and fill it up in these little bucket things. And we would have Mission Sunday, and we would sing songs as the church choir or the kid choir. They would have songs that we would sing. We would learn about the different nations that the church was giving to. And it just created this thing in me, this passion where I'm one day I want to do that. I want to travel. I want to meet new faces, go to new places, taste different food, see different culture. And I just had this strong desire. Fast forward to 13 years old, my family and I were a part of a traveling ministry where it was an evangelistic ministry. So with this type of people, there were people coming in from all over the world. And again, I remember saying at that age, I'm going to travel someday and I'm going to have this passion. I have this passion for the lost. I have a passion for missions. So here I am today, 31 years old. I almost forgot because I just turned 31, by the way. But I said all that to say is back in December at 30 years old, my dream of going on a mission trip, it just never worked out. There were so many times I've tried. I've been to different countries, but I didn't go specifically for missions. And I didn't go specifically to a third world country. So I finally, at 30 years old, my church has an evangelist. I don't know why I'm like tongue tying right now. My church has an evangelist who was like, I'm going to this nation, and if you can gather a certain amount of people, then we can go on a trip. And I was like, oh my goodness, yes, this has been a passion of mine since I was 6 years old. So sign me up. Sure enough, I was able to ask a few people. Next thing you know, it grew into much more than that. And there were about 13 of us that went on this trip, including Lance and I think it was about 14. And we were able, although this was my first mission trip, we were able to bring a whole team of 14 to Nicaragua. And that was my first trip, was there. So my husband, he's been on like 50 million trips. A few times he has gone while we were married, but I wasn't able to go because every time that he would go, I was pregnant or something. And not that that would have stopped me, but I was like towards the end of the pregnancy, because if I was earlier in the pregnancy and he had went on those trips, I am crazy enough to say, yup, I would have went. So long story short, with that segment of it, my husband, Lance, he's been on a bunch of mission trips. So we were able to get the team prepped to go on this mission trip. And I've been on all kinds of different crusades here in the United States, but not overseas. So I had some sort of idea on travel and all those different things. So I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a trip of a lifetime. I know it's going to mark me. I know that I'm either going to love it when I get there or I'm going to hate it because I don't know what to expect. I think I have an idea in my mind, but I really don't know until I get there. And of course, people had their opinions. So some people were telling me that I was going to love it. Others were like, oh my goodness, you're very particular about certain things, the way you dress. People were like, you hate bugs, so I don't know how you're going to do it. So then those things started to fill my mind. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it either. But you know what? This has been a passion, and I'm just going to go with the expectation of something that when I do this, Lord, it's just going to change my perspective. And that's sure enough what took place. So leading up to it, so excited. We actually left the day after Thanksgiving. So the team left from this area that we're in actually on Thanksgiving night, and we met them in Florida. That's where the connecting flight was. So we were able to go beforehand and go see my family. And it was crazy because it was the day after Thanksgiving. So we're like sitting here stuffing ourselves. I'm nervous. The night on Thanksgiving, we're sitting here trying to spend time with family, but then packing at the same time. And another thing is I have two boys. For those that may not know, one's 5 and one's 3 years old. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to leave my boys. They stayed with my parents, but I was still really nervous because this is like one of the longest times that we stayed away, us as a couple. Now, before I was away a little longer, but Lance was with them. But this was going to be the first time with both of us gone this long. So I was nervous about that. I was nervous about the expectation. I was really nervous about how the boys were going to act while we were gone. All these different things were running through my mind. And I was super excited up until that day of. And then I started to get really nervous. And I'm like, Lance, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what it's going to be like. What if I hate it? There's no turning back. We're literally going to be in a third world country with like minimal communication. And all these things were rushing through my mind. And he's like, Alexis, you're going to be okay. He's like, you have Jesus, you have us. Like, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay. So the flight wasn't long at all. It was a few hours, met up with the team. That really helped when we met up with the team because we were all excited and all kind of nervous at the same time. A lot of the girls that went on the trip, it was mostly girls and probably like 3 guys. Most of the girls that went on the trip, they were all nervous because it was their first time as well. So we were all experiencing that at the same time. Finally, we get there. It's nighttime or evening time, and it was so hot. I remember it being so hot. And I'm thinking, okay, I like the hot because it was cold back at home, so that's not too bad. But before I even like share this whole thing, my whole heart behind this is to encourage those that have never been on a mission trip to go try it out. Even if it's out of your element, even if you're like, I don't know if I could ever do that. I'm telling you that it changed my life, even with the bugs and even with the heat and even with the things that I'm so used to doing here in the United States that they didn't have there. I was able to just see a whole different side of what it looked like to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So we get there, it's hot. We get to the hotel. Now, the hotel was really nice. It wasn't for that area. It was literally like, we stayed at a really nice resort. And so it was funny because the people that we were updating back at home, when we put the pictures, they were like, oh my goodness, you guys are on a mission trip? You guys are sitting there chilling. And we're like, no. But it was a beautiful place. The people were super nice. It was super difficult to try to speak the language. Now, I'm half Hispanic. On my dad's side, they're Puerto Rican. So I kind of know a little bit of the basics of Spanish. I didn't really learn growing up. And when I'm around my grandmother, she speaks it fluently. And some other family members that I have, they speak it fluently. So when I am around them, I start to like pick up and I can understand what they're saying, but I'll respond in English. So that was kind of difficult because I was like, okay, it was awkward at times because they would be speaking something to you. And sometimes I would understand, but I'm like, I can't respond in English. They don't know a lick of English. So I'd like pop out my phone. I'm like, can you say that again? And then I'm like facing the phone towards them and they're speaking in it. And it's just, they laughed sometimes. I laughed. I'm like, this is awkward, but we're going to communicate. So that part was difficult and different. And of course we had some translators, but it's still not 100% an easy way to communicate. So that was a challenge. And that night, we were all dispersed into our hotel rooms. It was more of like a motel feel in the rooms. Of course, we couldn't drink the water, so I was nervous about that. I was like, okay, Lance, what do we do? And so we all got like a bunch of waters and we had to put it on our toothbrush every time so that we didn't like get sick from the water. And then another thing was the food. The food is completely different. So we made sure that we stocked up on different snacks and bars, but you can't live off of that. So I was excited about the food because I love rice and beans and chicken. And that's basically what we ate most of the time. And it was so good. And the people literally worked so hard to make sure that we were fed. And we were able to go into the different houses of people and saw their way of living, which was very simple. And it was very heartwarming and heart touching to us because we saw the work that those ladies put in. When I tell you down to like the chicken was there that day and then they used it for that night for us to eat. They literally did all that in a day. And then the way that they washed dishes was like outside. The way that they made the food was like over a fire that they had to light up every time. It wasn't just like an oven that you turn on like we do. And then the dishes wasn't like a sink. It was like this system that they had to make through PVC pipe and a slab of rock and stuff. It was so different. And I noticed those things because, you know, here in the United States with us, we can take those things for granted. Like we could take using our stove and using the sink and different things for granted. And next thing you know, we're like, I'm bored because of this and that. And then you go to a country like that and the women are using their whole days up to try to make sure that we're fed, working their tail off, using what they have because they don't know anything different. And so that really just touched my heart. And so I would go over and thank them and I would help them with the dishes. And it was pretty like cool and different to do the dishes in their style and then also watch them make the food. And they loved it. They were laughing. They were having a good time with one another. They weren't stuck on their phones like we are. Like when you go out somewhere, you just see people barely responding. They were present and they were willing to have conversation. And even though it was like a language barrier, you can still feel the love of God coming through them. The ones that we met through the church. We went to like 9 different churches there in the area. Some of them were in the country. Some of them were more in the city. In each church, the people there, it was just so sweet. It was so heart touching to see the transformation that took place. And each and every person on the team had an opportunity. The evangelist that we went with, his name is Pastor Brian, but each and every person had an opportunity to share something in each church. And I thought that was amazing as well. We got boots on the ground training. We literally had training on the spot. Like if there was something that we said or something that we were wondering in the moment, Pastor Brian really made sure that we were walking through it and we were able to understand why the people responded in this way or why this person reacted in this way. And it helped us to really, truly just be the hands and feet for God, for the people, in such a genuine, non-flashy way, if that makes any sense. Because I feel like in the United States, it's easy to want to like strive to be on the platform and strive for the fame and strive for the money and the fortune. But when you go to a place like that, it was literally down and back to the simple gospel. It was a visual for us of the simple gospel and what it looks like to, I'm trying to find the word, to simplify and to literally just preach pure Bible and not try to add or try to sound more spiritual or sound more smart than someone else. But we couldn't do that because we were trying to relate to the people so that they can understand where we were coming from. And of course, using a translator, we had to speak it in one way and then the translator had to translate it. So it wasn't always 100% exactly the way that we wanted the message to be relayed, but paired up with Holy Spirit, the simple gospel was spread. The simple gospel was said. And Pastor Brian was always making sure and telling us that you have to just speak the word. You can add in your life experiences, but speak the word and mix it with that. And then the people will be able to relate to your story because there's a language barrier. There's people that went through far worse things that we've ever gone through. That's all that they know. And that's all that they're ever gonna, like a lot of them's ever gonna know. So we had to somehow be able to relay the message in that way. And each and every one of us, it was so powerful to see how it to ourselves, because some of the girls like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. I've never done it before. Like for me, I got to preach for the first time in front of, there was like maybe 350 women. At first, I thought it was just going to be like 50 women. So when they just started to come more and more, I started to get super nervous and I was like, Lord, there's no way. Like I've never preached in front of this amount of people before. The longest I ever preached was like 8 minutes. And that was my first time and I was just practicing. So I'm like, and here I am, my second time in front of all of these women with a language barrier in a different nation. And I started to get really nervous. And that's when Pastor Brian was like, you just got to make sure that you're preaching the word and that you let the Holy Spirit to do the rest. Don't try to get in the way. Don't try to like add your own understanding to it. Go up there and be a yielded vessel. And I was like, okay. So sure enough, it was my turn. And I was looking out into all these ladies just staring at me. And I was like, Lord, the specific message that he gave me in that moment, or he gave that I thought that I wanted to say, he had me change it probably, I want to say like 30 minutes before I was supposed to speak. And I was like, there's no way. So I literally was so nervous. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. And then I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens, Lord. I'm going to lean on you. And that's the answer that he was looking for. He wanted me to just fully lean on him and just be his mouthpiece. So I changed it up. I wrote down the scriptures and things that I felt like the Lord was wanting me to speak. Got up there, introduced myself. I actually had a male translator, and right at the last minute, which I know that this was God, this female translator runs up because I started to like introduce myself. And so Melvin, our translator, he started to speak for me. And next thing you know, I look over and it's a woman, and I was like, what happened? And so she came last minute to help translate for me so that it could be more relatable to the ladies. And this girl was on fire. She was just as passionate as I was sharing. Whenever I made a movement, she sat there and made a movement as well. When I would lift my voice, she would lift her voice too. So it was literally a God send. And it helped the whole transition and me trying to do this for the first time. Not only was this my second time preaching, but it was my first time doing it with a translator that I've never done it before with. And so it was just very nerve-wracking. But when I yielded to the Spirit and I stepped out and said, you know what, Lord, you have my yes, you have my voice. I want to be your hands and feet. He took over. Some of the stuff, I don't even remember what I said, but I said it. And those ladies' lives that day got transformed. And even some of the people afterwards came up and said that it changed their life, and it changed my life. Not only did it change their life, whatever message the Lord had me talk about, which I ended up talking about acceptance, and I talked about identity and using what God has given you, no matter the circumstance and where you have come from. But it ministered to me, because when I tell you the heart of those ladies and the heart of those people, even without, like I said, without the fancy stuff, it was just so life-changing for me. Like, I literally can't even begin to describe. That's why I'm saying, if you can get on a trip one of these days, just do it. I even told someone before, I'm like, if we can get a group together of people that would be interested, no matter where you come from, what church you are part of, it's life-changing. And when I came back to the States and came back with my kids and my family, my family even recognized it in me, because I was just so different because of what I saw. Because all the things that we complain about here is nothing there. So let me fast forward a little bit. Did the service, was amazing. Each person got to share and preach. But the biggest thing I think that stood out to me out of all of the things, the preaching and the going to the different churches, was one of the days we used a lot of the money and the proceeds that people sowed into this ministry with to go buy a month supply of food for these people, because the wages that they make there is literally so low that some of them can't even eat. And so we were able to get a whole month supply of rice, beans, cheese. That's like a delicacy there, cheese. And there was something else, oil or something like that, for a month for families. So we literally went from house to house, lugging these bags. We went to the market as a team, which was a whole, it was a whole scene that we made, because first of all, there's a bunch of us. We stick out like a sore thumb. The way that we dress, the way that we look, they could definitely tell that we were Americans. But we were like lugging these huge 50-pound bags of rice and beans, and we're like barely making it. And like, we're trying to give it to the few guys that were there, and they're trying to help us. It was just so funny. It was a sight to see. But when we went to those houses and we went door to door, some of those people just sat there and bawled. Like, they just cried their eyes out, because they're like, oh my goodness, you just gave me a month's supply of food. And so what was so minuscule to us, because we're like, oh, rice and beans, meant the world to them. And so going door to door, we were able to pray with some people. Many of them got healed. There were some people that were bedridden for a month straight. And like one guy, and we went and prayed for him, and he got up out of the bed. There were people that had sickness, and there were people that had mental issues, depression, all these different things. And we were able to give them that food, bring the love of Christ up in that place. And when you went into these houses, it was just so different from the way that we live. It was so different. And you just look around and you're like, oh my goodness, like, I don't think I'll ever complain again a day in my life, because even the most poor here in our nation are, and I remember people would say that to me. They're like, they're so well off. And I'm like, whatever. But even the poorest here in our country are a lot more wealthy than people in a third world country. And I got to see that firsthand. So going door to door, seeing these people healed, seeing these people's reaction to the month supply of food was the highlight of the trip for me. And it just changed my my whole perspective of what it is to be the light of Christ and to love on people where they're at. And I didn't even care the dirt, because there was a few times I was stepping up in stuff that I don't even know what it was. There were bugs everywhere. There were flies always like on my face, on my arms. When I was talking, I probably swallowed a few bugs. Like, but when I was out there and I was experiencing those people and hugging on the kids and loving on the people and just seeing the joy on their face, none of those things matter. None of the things that what I looked like didn't matter. Because, you know, a lot of people know me, that I care about my appearance and stuff. And so I didn't care about there. I didn't care how I looked there. I probably looked like a troll doll half the time. My hair was super dry because it was hot. But I really didn't care. All I cared about was portraying the love of Christ to those people. And so I remember each night going back to the hotel and telling my husband, I'm like, babe, this changed my life. This is awesome. And journaling the experiences of each day and really just taking it all in and saying, wow, this passion that I had at 6 years old to now and being able to actually walk it out, it just was like a fulfillment that I had, that it just changed. It changed something in me. And now I want to go again and again and again. I'm like, Lord, send me. If nobody else wants to go, send me. And I'm even crazy enough to say, I want to bring my kids, because not one time did we feel like we were endangered at all. And I know that it's not the same everywhere in the world, but in that specific place, I'm like, I'm going to bring my kids. I want them to see this at a young age. I want them to be able to see what it looks like in different places, that we do have it well where we are, but that anywhere that you go, whether it looks like where we're from or not, you could still see the love of God and the transformation in God's people, because we're all, at the end of the day, it comes down to our souls, right? And so I'm like, I'm going to bring my kids. I'm going to encourage my friends. I'm going to encourage my family to get on a mission trip. And so the whole name of Mission Queen came about because everyone knew that my passion was missions. Even though I have never really been on a trip before that, prior to this, everyone knew that was my heart. So on the trip, Pastor Brian, he started to call me Mission Queen. He's like, yeah, Mission Queen. And it just stuck. So everybody started to call me Mission Queen. We would have devotionals in the morning, which was really like awesome, because we were able to be poured into, and then we were able to go pour it out. Like, we went to children's hospitals. We went to the different churches, like I said, different houses. We went to, I'm trying to think what else. There was another place we went to and I'm having a brain fart. But anyways, we just went all over the place. And they called me Mission Queen. And at first I was laughing, but then I'm like, Lord, I'm going to use that. Because I'm like, I'm going to use this on Speak Life as well as a Mission Queen. We can be a Mission Queen, having a heart for the nation. And even if you can't go, there's probably some people that really can't go, or maybe you really don't have a desire, but you can support others to go. You could find missionaries. You could find, maybe in your church, you can give towards the mission fund, whatever it is, wherever you are. You don't have to be the one to maybe go. I encourage you to at least go one time in your lifetime. But if you can't always go, or in the season you can't because of something specific, your job, your kids, I encourage you to sow into something then. Sow into a ministry that's doing it. Sow into a missionary and be a mission queen wherever you are, extending your arms to the nation by your support. And I wasn't as passionate. I was passionate about the nations, but I'm even more so now because I was able to experience it firsthand. And so I understand when that scripture says, go into all the world and preach the gospel. I'm like, yes, I am an advocate of it, because there's some people that need a better understanding of what that looks like. When we saw those people's lives transformed, I can't even put into words what it meant, and what I could just see, like, the Lord's face smiling down on what we were doing, because we were loving on his people, no matter what they looked like, smelled like, dressed like, no matter where they came from. And it just was a great picture of being the hands and feet. So you can be a mission queen too. If you can go on a trip, like I said, try to get on one. If you can't, then support someone and be the hands and feet for Christ. And don't leave it just to missionaries. Don't leave it just to evangelists. You could do it in your backyard. You can be a mission queen in your backyard, which means in your city. One thing that I tried to practice before I went on this mission trip, because I'm like, if I'm really called to the nations, or if I'm really wanting to go be a part of that, I need to do it in my backyard first. So I became the person that went wherever I went. I still, to this day, I'll share about Christ, because I'm like, if I can't do it here at home, I can't do it in the nations. And so wherever you are, whatever city you're a part of, whatever part of the country, if you're in a different country, wherever you are, you can be the hands and feet for Christ and be that mission queen that is spreading the gospel to all those around you. And maybe one day positioning yourself to be sent to the nations as well. And so through the story, I just wanted to share my experience. Hopefully that can encourage you. I know that I love to hear other people's experiences when they step out into a new endeavor, when they step out of their comfort zone, because not only does it encourage me, but it also gives me a picture of what I can look forward to in my life. And of course, it's going to look different, but it's still something that I can look forward to and say, hey, if she could do it, I could do it too. It may be a different path, a different journey on how I'm going to get there, but that's surely encouraging. So I hope that this story encouraged you to step out of your comfort zone. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what it was going to be like. I don't like bugs. I don't like heat. I don't like dirt. But I still, when I got there, none of those things mattered. I ended up having the runs. Most of us had the runs on the team because somehow we still drank the water. Somehow, I don't know if it was through something that we drank at one of the gas stations because we would get coffee, but somehow we still ended up getting the runs because of the water. There's like little things that you learn as you step out and do it, but none of those things matter. We didn't care. We're like, hey, if this is what we got to do to experience this and to have a life-changing moment. And boy, do I tell you that whole trip literally did mark my life for the rest of my life. And it's all I can think about. And then most of the girls and the guys that went on the trip, same thing. It marked their life forever. And so that's why I encourage you to try it out or be the one to support someone. Because when you do support someone, it's as if you did it as well. And now it's not exactly the same as if you were on the trip because it just changes your mindset, but it's as if you were the ones to be the hands and feet as well. And so I love you, ladies. I hope that this really encouraged you guys, and I'm going to pray you guys out, and I will catch you guys next time. So Lord, I just pray for each and every lady that's on here. I pray that if this is something that they're passionate about, something that's been on their heart, or maybe they haven't even ever thought about it, I just pray that this would be an encouraging video for them to be able to say, you know what? I do want to extend my arms. I do want to be the one to go, Lord. Show me when the right time is. Show me when the right season is. Show me how I could be that in my city until it's my time to go. And Lord, I just pray that you would show them the right timing. You would show them the right place. You would surround them with the right people to be able to go and extend their arms to the nations, to be the hands and feet, not only to the nations, but to those around them that they do have a reach with now, their sphere of influence. And I thank you for all that you're doing in each and every person. I pray that this would be an eye opener for some, and then a confirmation for others that are already passionate about this. And I thank you. And I pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that remember to speak life always. And I hope that you have a great rest of the week. Bye.